Brennan Goo Goo.
Good day, Peter.
How are you? Pytor. My grandson today asked me, I said, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Pytor. And I was like, oh, no, Grandpa. And he said, who's Pytor?
Is he never heard anyone say that before? Or he must have just been like, oh, I wonder like what they're saying.
Well, he's still too little to know that grandpas aren't named, like have any other name, I don't think.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like Dada is Dada, and yeah. But it was, we had a nice little outing today, and
you guys went to Costco?
Oh, he did.
Nice.
My God, I am just in love with him. Holy Jesus! Like,
he's so cute. He's always like just always cheerful too. Always like smiling. I mean, obviously, like kids get restless and stuff, but like aside from that, like he's generally whenever I see him anyway.
He is a delightful little
like a little ray of sunshine.
He went through a gross phase of like I'd walk in and I'd say, well, "Can you give me a hug?" He's like, "No, thank you." And I did not enjoy that in any way. And yeah,
I respect it though.
Yeah, totally. Cool. But yeah,
let's take a look at you too.
Pardon me?
Did Leah go with you guys too?
No, I think she was with her dad today, I think. But JJ and I went, Jeff and I went, sorry, JJ. Jeff and I went to pick up a couple things, and it was just a lovely little, I just like those adventures with him. And yeah. But yeah, knock, knock, who's there? Pytor, accidentally. He's like, who's Pytor?
That's funny.
Oh, goodness. I tell you, I cannot lie, Brennan Goo. I am very tired tonight.
Yeah?
Oh, yes. And it's just sad too, actually. The outcome of the story is quite sad. So, in my world of sadness. So, I got up right early this morning, like 4:30, and I woke up and I rolled over and I looked at the clock and I was like, no, Peter, it's Sunday. You don't need to get up early. Go back to sleep. And then I remembered that I had these beautiful beef ribs in the fridge, like beautiful beef ribs, like 15 of them. And I was like, no, because I want to smoke them and they take 10 hours and I want them to be ready when Tracy is here. And so I roll out of bed and I go and start the smoker and the sun is rising and I get them on there and that's good. I feel good about doing that. And then I remember that the Sacred Fire honoring children and their return home was lit this weekend here in town. And we're coming up in the next few days to the third anniversary of our relations in British Columbia, sharing the outcomes of their sonar search of the graveyards at Kamloops Indian Residential School. And so it also marks 3 years this week of aunties and uncles and grandmas and grandfathers, Mishomases and Cookums lighting the sacred fire here in Kingston every week. Or every month, sorry. And the number of people who that has provided moments of healing and grace and connection and community is just so incredible. And so I certainly lift my hands to everyone who's been involved in that process. And so I remembered this morning that it was lit and our friend Chris was down there. So I texted him to see if he wanted a coffee and I went down. And I thought of it last night that I would go in the mornings. I knew I'd be up at like somewhere between 5:30 and 7, I thought. And so I went down and sat by the fire and we had a lovely little ceremony and it was just beautiful, really. And then I went for a walk because I was down by the water. And so I got some exercise in and then I got home and I thought I was going to have a nap. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a nap because I got up at 4:30 and the show's tonight and I'm going to need a little rest. But then I just kept packing stuff because, as you know, we're moving and relocating. Bless you. And so I'm packing away and then went to celebrate a dear friend's 35 years of being sober clean. Totally. And it was amazing. She's amazing. And so we did that. And then my pal Tracy, and then that's when I went out with Everett and JJ for a quick run. And then we came back and Tracy came and gave me a hand and we packed a bunch more and sorted a bunch more. And so now it's 7:06 p.m. So that would be 15 hours, I think, after I've gotten up. My watch tells me that I have stood today for, 15 hours. So, needless to say, I'm a Tucker little bear tonight. And I'm trying not to have caffeine because I have a very long day, a busy day. Not a long day, like not bad long, just long tomorrow. And because it is only 9 sleeps till I see your face in real life, as we start our tour of Atlantic Canada as the final component of the We're Listening project that we've done in partnership with the Unweg Indigenous Communities Foundation. And I am really, I think it's going to be like a workation, right? Like there's going to be lots of work in their long days, without a doubt. We're going to be in 5 regions, starting off.
How many days?
Over 10 days, I think. Right. And so starting number 2,
New Brunswick, PEI.
Yeah, member 2, the New Brunswick, and member 2. So starting it at on Saturday, June 8th, in member 2 First Nation, and the next day we'll be in Eel Ground First Nation in New Brunswick. I think then the 10th we'll be in Lennox Island First Nation in Prince Edward Island, and then we're gonna zip around, ending up in Newfoundland. And on the 12th, we'll be in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. And then a little zip and over to Goose Bay, Labrador, where on the 14th, we'll have our last session there in Goose Bay, Labrador. And so if you are an Indigenous young person in any of those areas or close to those areas, come and join us for our Indigenous Youth Social and Engagement sessions. And you can find more information on our website, of course. So, yeah.
Wait.
Yeah. So there we go. Lana says hello. Hello, Lana.
Hello.
I am
Jeff.
I'm not feeling super handsome today. And then there's Jeff. Yes, it was a nice day. It was a great little run.
Nice. You love to see it.
Totally. It is. Yeah. So your Sunday, what was your Sunday like?
Sunday. Today was super chill. Didn't do much. It was great. Just like slept in, played some games, tidied up a bit, and then just hopped on here. Yeah, I just been busy with lacrosse. Like yesterday was really good. We played 2 games here, and it was fun. The first game we lost like 9-1, and then so we played the same team like a couple hours later, and then we ended up losing 7-4. But we almost came back at the end. We were down by 2. It was like 5-3. And then it was like 2 minutes left. And this is U13, right? These are young kids.
Yeah.
So one of my assistant coaches came over to me. He's like, man, I got this sweet drill I want to try. Like, can we get a timeout? I was like, all right. So called the assistant captain over, told him to get a timeout as soon as we got the ball. Did it and brought them over, like drew it up on the board. And then literally like 7 seconds in, they did it perfectly and scored right away. It was awesome.
Like out of a movie.
Yeah, it was great. We were like, yeah. And then the other team scored right away, but they were like still fired up. They're like, we can win. It was so fun. Yeah. I love coaching the young ones. They get so into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you remember being that age and playing?
I didn't play that age. I didn't start playing until I was probably 15.
Oh, yeah?
Age, yeah.
Oh, I forgot. That's what I wanted to do. I found a bunch of old pictures of you, and I'm going to eventually make them into a little short that we'll share with people because they're
like from when I was living in Kingston.
No, like pre. Like
like all Township and stuff.
Pre.
Oh, right, because you said you were going.
If I knew how to share my screen, I'd show them to everyone because they're just so delightful and yeah.
I had a lot of young baby pictures on there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my uncle, my cousin Dalen. Can't remember what else.
It just made me
when I was in like a Buzz Lightyear costume. Maybe the alien. No, maybe it's the alien from Toy Story. I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Some Goldies in there.
It made me very happy to see them all. So I will eventually get my ducks in a row and make it happen.
Yeah. I had a good weekend though. And,
yeah.
We had a really good U17 practice too with the high school team. We only had a couple guys come out again this week, but it was really good practice. It was cool. It's just nice to be back back in the medicine game.
And are there some of those young folks, those sort of 14 to 17 that you could see potentially making their way to Paris?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of new kids too on the trail team, like here that in that age group. Like I could see for sure.
Excellent. We haven't yet.
I hope they apply.
Yeah.
Bug them to apply.
We haven't heard yet, but we have Avery Doc Dater, who is doing a fantastic job, and I'm so thrilled to be working with her. And she's actually going to join us in our next little project with Szechuan as well. So that's super exciting. And but that said, we're just moving along, trying to see, and if it comes through, it comes through, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, and we'll just take it one day at a time.
Nice.
But that's certainly where we're going to need people, a hand from everyone we know, that if we should get it, we're going to need the word spread across the country, from across the territories, sea to sea to sea. And today I was really thinking hard about, I can identify, and I know First Nations young people who would fit in this space. So we're also, if you've got ideas, if you're watching and have connections, and especially in our friends in Labrador, who are looking for Inuit young athletes, right? So go from there. That's something we've got to work towards.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am super tight. The sad part of the day, sorry. So then I pulled the ribs off 10 hours later.
Ooh.
And, I realized, and they were small. They weren't as meaty as they were previously. And I noticed that when I was making them this morning, like rubbing them and stuff. And so I took them off at 10 o'clock or 10 hours, and I really probably needed to take them off at 8 hours. They were sadly like very grizzly and kind of, Sean described them as sort of beef jerky-ish.
Deadly.
He said, I really like it.
Bush ribs.
Like it. And as you know, and folks know, I'm pretty good with that smoker and with the barbecues. And I butchered that, and not in a good butcher kind of way. Like it was, So tomorrow I'm gonna just peel all the meat I can get off of it and mix it with mayonnaise and turn it into smoked rib salad.
Okay.
I think that'll be the way to save it.
That's cool. You're like an artist. You're like, when artists are like painting, they're like, there's no mistakes. Like Bob Ross. Mistakes.
Well, I can trust you. This was a mistake.
You made it work though. Now you'll have this deadly mayonnaise beef.
Exactly. Well, I think if you call it a salad, anything with mayonnaise, you call it a salad, and then it's a health food, right?
The meat mayonnaise salad. The meat mayo salad.
That's awesome. It is. But it was a good day. They're closing the fire right now, probably here in town, and after they lit it yesterday, and so just thinking about all those folks across the country who, for this week coming up, just be real mindful about how we're feeling, right? How we're like responding to the reminders, not just of Kamloops, but literally across the country, and the thousands and thousands of either unmarked graves or anomalies that are suspected of, or potentially that of children buried, and just thinking about those children and their spirits finding their way home. And every time these fires are lit, whether here in Kingston or around territories, just that it helps these spirits find their way home, right? And bring some peace to families. So if you're having a hard go, make sure that you chat about it and you talk about it, right? And because we forget sometimes that these things in the world that are real are painful and they're overwhelming. And so if we're ever feeling like we're struggling, or we're ever feeling like it's too much or a lot, pick up the phone and call someone, and just to have a chat, just to have a conversation. And because at the end of the day, these very overwhelming and challenging pieces of, and not just history, but the things that occur today, and maybe not specifically even focused on us as Indigenous peoples, but in general, when we've got the feels, we have the ability to talk about it. And I'll tell you what, for the last 2 weeks now, I'm now just completed 2 weeks of no eating of junk and crap. So, yeah, you're on mute. So all the good words you just said to me were lost in the mute them.
Yeah, proud of you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I feel really good. I feel really, really good because one of the things is that any of the feelings I'm getting, I'm just sitting with them, right? I'm not feeding them. I'm not pretending they're not there. I'm just being with them. I'm just processing it. I'm not reacting to it. And today, today I was thinking about donuts because I often think about donuts. I was thinking about donuts, but I also was like, no, I don't need a donut. And it wasn't that I wasn't, and it wasn't like I was wanting a donut to feed something other than my taste buds, right? And I was just like, no. I thought on vacation I'll have a lot of time to eat donuts. Like right now, I just need to be serious and take care of myself. So yeah, so I had grizzly beef ribs.
That's great. Oh, I forgot too. This week I got to. They announced it this week that I am one of the new members of the Tribe Network's board. Yeah, so they just announced their new board, and you'll remember Alfred Burgenson.
Yeah.
He used to work with Morley. He's the CEO of Tribe Network there.
Tribe Network?
Yeah. So here, I'll send you a link.
All right, I'm looking right now here. Oh
yeah. Yeah, they've been doing. They're only about 4 years old, their organization, so it's really young. It's really cool. So me and Alexa Vitalik are two of the Indigenous people on the board. Yeah, and formerly it was actually my cousin Nadine Bernard was on the board for the first 3 years of it, I believe, and she did a lot of work helping them with their policy and just including Indigenous community and stuff. And so shout out to her. But yeah, shout out to Tribe too, and that was really awesome. It was really cool because it was just it was just a group of really you could tell just elite level thinkers.
Yeah.
Very high level processing and thinking about just the future of the organization and past of it and the climate of community and stuff.
And did you meet the other board members?
Yeah, we had I wasn't able to make it up because I had some car issues. But I was on the Zoom there and I got to meet them virtually.
And Victor Beaujolais.
Yeah. Sorry?
Did you meet Victor Beaujolais online there?
Yes. From Chicago. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he actually went. I don't know if he was. I think he actually came down for it, or he was down and then was able to go. I can't remember.
Well,
yeah, there was some really cool people on there, and from San Francisco and Chicago, and I was like, dang.
Yeah, so Victor Beaujolais is brilliant. He is absolute brilliance. He is and it's funny. So I love the fact that you're on the board, of course, and it brings a lot to it. But seeing Victor's name there is just thrilling. Victor's.
Are you guys friends?
Yeah, we've cool. Worked in the past together, and he's on the list of the folks that are some of the smartest people I know.
Cool.
He is on that short list of that is amazing. That's wonderful.
That's cool. I'll have to pick his brain next chance I get.
Yeah, I put a chat there. I put something in the chat there, but it doesn't, or in the comments, but it didn't seem to work.
I see it on the Facebook one.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, and there it popped up on the YouTube one. Yeah, might just be delayed on yours.
Oh no, it says an error occurred. Wait a moment. Who knows? But if it's there, it's there. Check them out. Tribe Network. I'll learn more about it as well, and that's exciting. That's I think Alfred. Did I meet Alfred
in Sonoma?
Yeah,
would have been because I think he was Morley's assistant.
No,
he was with him all the time anyway.
So
I don't know.
He was hired. Oh God. So
yeah, let's hear.
So he was hired.
I never knew. So.
Well, so he was hired to shoot, I think, a documentary of the landing in France. And I think in the end, we never had enough dollars to turn the footage into a documentary, like to finish it. But I tell you what, I did not know him prior to heading out. And I was preparing to leave for France.
Mm-hmm.
And I had recently figured out that everyone else was already in France. I was the only one.
Oh, you didn't even know?
No, everyone else had
gone. That must have been the most stressful thought.
Oh, I will not lie. I was certainly annoyed. And I was like, what? But I couldn't have gone regardless because we were so full right up to the day we left. But I had sent out some messages to our partners, all of whom I thoroughly enjoy working with. But I thought that day I would lose my mind because I had sent out messages saying, how are folks wanting to get from Paris to Le Havre? And didn't hear anything back, right? So, which is not uncommon in the world of busy people. Mm-hmm. So, needless to say, I booked a car for myself, and away I was going. Right, get off in Paris, go to Le Havre. Figure people are all adults; they'll figure it out fine. Or I actually assumed they had already figured out how they were getting there. So the morning I was going to the airport, I get an email saying, "How are we getting to Le Havre?"
Oh no!
And then,
what was the date of this email? Sorry.
Oh, the day I was flying to Paris. Mm-hmm. So how are we all getting to Le Havre? And I'm like, huh? And then, and who's going to pick up Alfred from the airport? And I'm like, who's Alfred? I've got the list of all the names. Right? Everyone is going. Everyone is doing. I'm like, who's Alfred? I don't know who Alfred is. So I'll never forget. I was flying. I had upgrades, so I'd flown business class to France, right, on my upgrades, and so I got off the plane immediately. Within it was the greatest arrival of all time at an international flight. So I got off the plane within maybe 7 minutes. I'm not only out of customs, but have my luggage, and I'm outside. And so, but I've got to wait for Alfred, who is somewhere on the plane. And I don't know if we met prior to getting on the plane. I don't think we did.
First class when you went up?
Did I? Yeah. I used to. Yeah,
so you got to go out quick.
Yeah, I was quick. So then I had to wait like the 25 minutes for Alfred to come out, right, from the back of the plane. But then there was some sort of security breach at the Paris airport. And as I'm standing there waiting, armed military rush into the airport, shutting the entire thing down.
We're like on our way to Le Havre on the ship as this was happening.
Yeah, you folks were on your way to Le Havre, and I was at the Paris airport.
I didn't know that happened. That's crazy.
And apparently it happens there regularly. So it wasn't like no one was like startled or unsettled, even though these armed military folks are running by. But everything was frozen in place, including me, who's outside now waiting for Alfred. So that was my first introduction to Alfred, was having to wait whatever it was, an hour for him to get off the plane and once the crisis was averted. And so and it's funny, look at those moments, right? And at the time it seemed so frustrating.
Poor guy's just trying to do his job.
Just job.
Just there.
I'm like, who are you and why am I waiting for you? I don't even know who you are. I don't know why I'm doing this. Anyways. We ended up changing it from a car to a van and headed into Paris to pick folks up, your folks included. And I'll never forget, whatever hotel someone was staying at, I went in and I bought a Diet Coke, and it came in a little tiny glass bottle. And I handed them 20 euros and they said, thank you. And I sat there waiting like a dummy for change.
Rip. That's hilarious.
It was 20 euros.
Probably just mad too.
The whole thing is I had envisioned me in my private car, asleep in the back seat. I'd had an overnight flight. So anyways, we get on the van, get everyone onto the van, away we go to Le Havre. And I've got my $20 or 20 euro Diet Coke on the table of the van, like on my seat table. And 10 seconds later, we hit a bump, and the bottle falls over, spilling the Coke. And I'm like, I don't know anyone here. It's supposed to be your mom, Dawn, all these wonderful people, but I'm like, I've done an overnight flight. Even though I slept a little bit, I'm still tired. I'm now in the middle of Paris instead of Le Havre. It's hot. I just spent $20 on a pop. And I don't know if I did or not. Your mom might remember, but I may have just licked the Diet Coke right off the table.
Oh, that's right.
I may have just done that. I don't know. But yeah.
Had you been to Europe before that though? Like you weren't familiar with their customs?
Yeah. I just wasn't familiar with $20 or €20 Diet Coke. Like, and not even a like big Diet Coke. It was like smaller than a can, the equivalent. Like, yeah. So I don't know what hotel that was, but I can tell you I've never stayed there since, or I've never stayed there ever, but I've never stayed there again.
That's funny.
So, but yeah, so Alfred, that's awesome that you're getting to work with him. That's absolutely fantastic.
That's such a funny connection there.
Yeah. And Victor,
we'll have him. I'm sure we'll have him on the show.
We totally, most certainly. And if you get a chance to work with Victor Beaujolais, who's a board member with you, he, again, one of the smartest people I know in the world. So, but that was a long story, and we've taken precious time from our very, very exciting guest that we're going to welcome right now. And I want to tell you just before she comes on, I generally write up these sort of things. You'll see them on Facebook and on social media when we're promoting our guests. And today I was working on one for our guest. And tell us who's joining us there, Brendan.
Yeah. So today we have Kyana Kingbird, who is a good friend of mine from Burnt Church First Nation in New Brunswick. She's originally born in Bemidji, Minnesota. I probably butchered that. And very talented artist, designer, educator, mother, all actor, model, everything under the sun. So just one of those just does it all type of people, and so I'm super excited to finally have her on the show. And so welcome, Kyana.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Can. Ani, bonjour, hello.
Hi. So actually, Bemidji is just where I lived for most of my childhood, so that's just what I put to easier. But I was actually born in Fort. My gosh, I forgot where I was born. I'm blanking out. I'm nervous right now. But in a military base on the West Coast in Washington, in the state. I'm technically baby. Yep.
Well,
adult though, so that's on my bucket list.
Well, what's on your bucket list? Sorry.
Visiting where I was born.
You've never have you like been there since you were like left as a kid?
Away from there when I was 9 months, and then we moved back to Minnesota, and I stayed in Minnesota basically on like every reserve you could think of. So if I was enrolled in the States, I would be enrolled in Red Lake. But for the most part, we lived in Bemidji, which is a town between a lot of the reserves up there. I lived in Cass Lake. I lived down in Richfield. I'm just going to stop naming towns because that'll take up the whole podcast.
Well, it's fantastic to meet you. And again, we're already hearing people are so excited to meet you. And I'm thrilled that you're joining us. And I want to give a shout out to Brendan because we've been doing this podcast now for 4 years, and I think we've recently hit the 200 episode mark a bit ago, like more than 200 episodes now. And so most often it is myself late in the day who's writing up these little bios and posting those little promos. Our dream world is that we would do it a week earlier, and we never, just life happens every week. And you had shared you were nervous, Kyana. Truth be told, I hope it's not us who could have that effect, because this is not that kind of podcast. Folks nervous. But that said, we today I was doing it and I posted it and sent Brendan the link. And as soon as I did that, I went back to his email to look for something, and I saw that he had written a bio for you. And I think it might be the first bio you've written in 4 years for someone. And it was
I've written, oh man, I can't remember the last one.
Oh,
it's probably like the third though.
Second. Okay, the third. Sorry, the third. I don't want to be a liar. So the third bio, and his was 1,000 times better than mine. So do you mind? Can I read this then?
Yeah, let's hear it.
No, to be fair, she sent me an image with a breakdown. I sent you it too, with her like double curve media, write-ups of what she does. I stole a lot of it from that and just paraphrased it. So shout out to her management team for all the information.
Well, there we go. Well, in his bio was, join us as we welcome Kyana Kingbird, who is Mi'kmaq Ojibwe designer, visual artist, model, actor, educator, mother, performing artist, and dancer from Bemidji, Minnesota, and okay, help us out here.
Escanobridge.
I wouldn't have gone there. That would have, so I'm thankful for the help. And also known as Burnt Church, correct? Yeah. And was the first powwow dancer to ever perform at a Toronto Raptors game. Kyana excels in traditional fancy shawl and jingle dress styles, beadwork, and textiles, as well as offering a variety of cultural and educational workshops and teachings to organizations, schools, and youth across Canada. A multifaceted artist, Kingbird handcrafts and designs the intricate beadwork, which I think you're doing right now. Is that correct?
Yes. I like to keep busy because otherwise I'm going to sit here and like play with my hair or something, move a lot.
You're not the first to bead as we chat, and I love it when people do that. That is fantastic. And you designed the intricate beadwork and regalia you adorn while dancing, and has even designed her own fashion lines with runs such as her most recent showing at Fashion Art 2024. Kyana's creations and expressions merge her diverse passion into a unique form of art that reflects her lived experiences. Her work aims to illuminate the beauty in her unconscious thoughts and ideas, filtered through an Indigenous lens and shaped by her upbringing. So again,
that whole end part was just a direct quote from their thing.
Fair enough, but it was excellent. So you're at, and what are you beading tonight?
I'm making, well, this is already technically done, but I was just adding a little bit of a accoutrement to it, make it a little fancy. So these are just little brass spikes, and this is a beaded breastplate. I've been working on a lot of beadwork orders lately, and you know when you're really passionate about something and you love to do it, and then you monetize it and you don't quite feel as passionate. So, as one of my side projects. So I wasn't actually creating this specifically for anyone or anything. So I'm just going to raffle it off on Facebook later.
There you go. Awesome. And we certainly understand that's why we've never accepted money for this program.
For real, amen.
That and nobody's offered either. So there should actually
clear. So, if there's any big sponsors out there,
well,
it's a no. It's a hard no.
We will not take your money.
Yeah.
We will not take your Netflix money.
Even if you offer more. No, never.
We have integrity.
Yeah. I won't take your free mattress.
And so, do you remember what the first piece you beaded was, Kyana?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Wait, I have some of it. I could show you guys. So these, when I first started dancing as an adult, I had no beadwork. I didn't even have like beaded earrings or anything, but I enjoyed myself. It was fun, right? So I was at a powwow with a couple of my friends, and like in the most loving way possible. Like it wasn't out of judgment. Like he was just like, he looked down at my mocks and he was like, bead those. I was like, okay, well, I better learn how to bead then. So this is one of my first projects. It's still kind of like,
wow.
First? That's crazy.
And that's the thing too that I think is I really appreciate about past Kyana is that I kind of had like an ambitious project, right? Like I was like, I'm gonna make some hair ties because I want something to dance with. And so now when I bead, I don't like making like small objects like earrings or anything. And it's not like that I think I'm better than it or anything, because I have no earrings now because I don't like beading them. But I like the weight of like making projects, and when you're working on something and you feel it like getting a weight to it. So that's kind of what drives me when I make stuff. So I usually make like men's sets and stuff, like so like men's beadwork, because it's all very large pieces. Where do I don't have any in here, but I'm currently working on a men's grass set, and it's
Wow.
humongous. Like for like compared to my size, like I like to like put it up to like my hair ties and stuff. Like these would be like tiny compared to the pieces I'm doing right now. But I ran out of beads, because that's another thing is when I think about my beadwork, I'll get like just a small amount because that's all I need for my pieces. And then I realize that it's like a gigantic set, so I have to go back, find some more beads for it.
How often do you like redo your stuff, your beadwork? Like how often do you like put a bunch of time and effort into something and then just tear it all apart and start over?
Honestly, with my own stuff, I find I'm a lot less picky, and I also haven't really beaded for myself in a while. So I'm like on the fence right now with powwow. Like I want to dance, but I want new stuff, but I have a bunch of work to do. So we're kind of like in a strange space right now. But the last time I did a bunch of beadwork for myself was during COVID. So when we still had like all the powwows were shut down in 2021, Alberta, they started having powwows. And my mom was living in Fort Mac. So I was like, I'm like, hey, mom, I really miss you. Me and Serena, like my daughter, I was like, we're going to come out and stay with you for a couple months. And we went out in the summertime months when there was a bunch of powwows happening. So I just like saved up all my money, took like some days off, and was like, hey, if you guys need me for in-person stuff, let me know. I'll schedule, try to make it back to meetings. But it was during COVID time, so that wasn't too much of a concern. They let me go out there for the most part. And I just went out there and I danced a whole bunch. But before I went out there, I had my yellow beadwork, and I had started working on a blue velvet set. And so I had a bandolier bag and a belt done. And I was like, oh no, well, powwow season started back up again. So I finished like my moccasins, my leggings, my hair ties, a barrette, and my yoke. So I did all that in like a month or so before I went out for the powwow, or for the powwows.
That's crazy. In a month?
Yeah, it was crazy. And like the leggings weren't even completely done. Like they were just like the absolute minimum outlines and stuff on them. But I just wanted to go out and dance. I wanted to have new stuff too. So it really motivated me. And it's not like I was going anywhere or had anything to do, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go. Yeah.
Does Serena ever like question you about your beadwork? Like, why are you working so hard on that? Or
yes.
Why do you do so much?
For the longest time, she like hated my beadwork. Like she'd be like, "Oh, you're beading again, you're beading." But then, like once I started making stuff for her, then it wasn't really as much of an issue.
Nice.
So now she's at the point like it feels really good for me, like to be like a powwow mom, because I'll show her something I made. She's like, "Oh, I want that," and I'm like, "Okay, you can have it," and it feels nice. And like
So
with
cool.
her dresses and stuff, I'm like, "Oh, I got to make you a new dress," and she's like, "I want one like this or like this," and like I think of like when I was a kid, and I would just like go out with like family members or whatever, and they would gear me up like that, and like to see like other people who just had like all decked out, I was just a little res kid growing up. You don't have that kind of stuff. And then in my teen years, I didn't dance at all. So it just like the concept of being a powwow dancer, you see them and it's almost like celebrities that you're like, wow, oh, I want to be like that someday, but I can't, just like that kind of mentality. And so like being able to give my child that feels really, really good. It's like, it's kind of like healing for your own inner child.
Well, and that's what it is, right? I think, like, at least from where I sit, you're creating medicine, right? Your crafting and your art is about that healing piece. And I think for so many of us, when we have that opportunity to be either creating or gifted and wearing medicine that people have this spirit goes into it, right? And that spirit and that intention and that care and that love and that pride. And I was just saying, our dear friend Georgia Ward, grandmother Georgia Ward here in our community, it was her birthday this week. And I was saying to her on her birthday just how absolutely thrilling it is that she's here and what she contributes to her family, her grandchildren, and her kids, and all of us. And she's been so generous with that medicine, right? And it is, so I was saying I wear it because it makes, not just because it makes me look awesome, because it does, like it really is, but also because it just helps me, reminds me of every teaching that not just her but grandmothers have taught me, right? And it's this funny balance between humility when I wear beadwork, which is regularly. I have 1 or 2 medallions.
Kyana, you go in his bedroom and one big wall, like 10-foot wide walls, just like all medallions. It's crazy.
I travel a lot, right? I'm gifted a lot of pieces.
He travels, he brings a medallion for like each outfit.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, and a part of it is that it is medicine for me, right? It's these reminders of so how I make decisions and how I behave and the things that I say and how I say them. When I'm wearing medicine, and it can be this piece, it could be like other beaded pieces. They are all reminders of the fact that I have a responsibility that has been instructed to me in how to behave and how to walk in this world. And it's hard to be a jackass if I'm wearing medicine around my neck. And lots of it's super deadly too. And I've been to your Instagram, and we're gonna put your link here too in your Instagram on the, like, your pieces again. You've now gone on to my watch list of someone whose work I have to eventually find, because it is stunning. It is
well worth the money, I'll tell you. I've gotten a couple pieces for my mom for gifts, and she was super, super happy with them.
Oh, and I've heard this. Oh, now I'm connecting the dots. I've heard these. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That is very, very good.
My mom's the Crocs, the beaded gibbet Crocs. Yeah, that was Kyana.
Awesome. So you're really, that healing you're talking about with your daughter, right? It's natural, because these are the ways that we are able to heal for ourselves, create spaces for our children and grandchildren to heal. And as these practices are reclaimed, the stronger our nations, our communities, our families, our spaces, our places are going to get. And we are going to look super awesome in the process.
For sure. Especially like with the healing aspect too. Like, and I didn't used to like sewing. I always would say like, oh, I'm not a good sewer at all. I can't make dresses, this and that. And I made myself a jingle dress before, and it was a process. I'll just put it that way. It was like tricky for me. And I just generally thought I didn't like to make dresses, like I didn't like sewing. And then when my baby was dancing jingle, like I used to make her traditional dresses when she was like super small, and then she switched over to jingle. So once I started making her jingle dresses, I realized I actually do like to make dresses. I just didn't like making them for myself, but like making it for my baby, when she's going to be wearing them at POWs, I really went all out with them. I made like really intricate applique designs, and I would use my best materials. And like I had this one rickrack that I got from a friend that used to sell fabric, and it was a antique rickrack, and I've never seen any like it before. And my daughter had got this cat fabric, and she really wanted to have a cat jingle dress. And I, like, when I first got back into dancing, I had a lot of people that were teaching me that were very old ways, and like they were very set in stone about how you're supposed to wear stuff in the powwow world, right? And so at the time, like I was like, oh, I want to make my daughter like some beaded cat regalia. And they were like, no, don't do that. That's corny. You make stuff with like your tribal designs, or in like old ways, this and that, and like don't stray away and get too contemporary. That's corny. So anytime my baby would say, oh, I want a cat jingle dress, I'd be like, maybe. And I was just always going from that old ways rhetoric, right? And so last year, my baby was going through some bullying and stuff at school. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make you your dress right now. She was like, oh, can you please use the cat fabric? And that time, it really hit home for me that I was like, why am I not using it? Like, I'm almost engaging in like a form of bullying this way, like, like passive bullying by choosing not to use it because like it'll be corny or whatever. And so I made her that cat dress, and I used that antique rickrack, and I used some, what do you call them? Like they're real small cones, and they're kind of like old ways how old jingle dresses would be made back in the day, like in Minnesota. And I tried to make it just like as intricate as possible, and even to this day, like it's one of her best fitting dresses, and it looks so nice on her, and she's so happy to wear it. Other moms or kids will be like, oh, I love that there's cats on it. And every time I hear it, it's so funny to me to think that just from a couple voices that said, hey, don't do it this way, I really stopped so much happiness, not just for my baby, but for even other people to see it on the trail, right?
That's so cool.
And it's interesting, right? Because there is this level of what we think is traditional, what we think is okay, and I have been really sort of thrilled watching over the last 5 years, well, probably the last 15 years, but the last 5 years when it comes to regalia and it comes to whatever those components might be, that there is this openness, particularly around young people, around pushing what that could mean, right? And identifying exactly what represents them in the moment. It might not represent your daughter. The cat fabric might not be in 5 years from now, but in the moment, and being confident enough to be able to pull that off, right? Like I would not be confident enough to pull off cat fabric. And that's a sin. That's too bad, right? It's too bad that I wouldn't. But I see it a lot as we were watching ribbon dresses, more and more ribbon skirts being made with, and in fact, ribbon shirts. Grandmother Judy made me 2 ribbon shirts last year to celebrate Pride and recognize Pride, like LGBTQ Pride, and I absolutely walk 3 feet taller when I'm wearing them, right? Like, because truthfully, 20 years ago, it just wasn't happening. That wasn't being seen in our spaces, places, in our communities, and in ceremony and powwows, and those sort of pieces. And I wore those proudly because I watched young people wear them proudly, right? Like, and this actually was the latest piece from Georgia, and it's a replication of one she had made for me last year, and so that is my newest medallion there.
That's so pretty.
And she had made a similar one for me last year, and we were visiting North Caribou Lake First Nation in Northern Ontario, and one of the young people that we've known since she was just a teenager. She's 21 now, and she was elected to council when we were there in November. And I had my medallion that looked like that and was able to gift it to her. And so the beautiful thing about that, right, is to be able to see artists work on the move. And another piece Georgia did, Brennan's dad introduced myself and some colleagues to help me out, Colonel Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy Hansen,
who's going to be.
He's going to be one of the astronauts going to the moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Georgia, overnight, right before I was leaving, and when I learned that we were going to be able to have the opportunity to spend time with them and visit with them, she made a matching piece that she had made originally. The first piece she had made for Brennan, actually, right, Brennan? Is that your piece? The Baby Yoda?
Oh, yeah, really, yeah.
And so she made a Baby Yoda medallion for him to take to space with him.
I love that.
And so it is a fantastic sort of, there it is, here it is, let's see.
Especially to be able to whip it up that fast too, eh?
Oh, she is literally just amazing.
Yeah, here it is. This is a beautiful piece. Insane.
Oh, even in the space background.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh, wait.
Like all the little gold and blue and silver. And even like this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like insane. There's so many different colors in there, and like you can't really tell on the camera, but like this is like really shiny gold.
Here, I'm gonna put you in the spotlight again.
Nice, yeah. It's like really nice gold here. This is a beautiful piece.
Yeah, and it's and the great thing about it, right, is that these pieces is that they're not novelty items either, right? Like when you think about the fact that these pieces, they're not about novelty, they're even just about the teachings about the stars and the understanding of, like, so Baby Yoda is a pop culture figure, but the piece around it is way deeper than that, right?
Even just like sourcing beads too, I find sometimes, like how you mentioned, it's like a nice gold. Sometimes especially when you've been beading long, I find I like to be very specific with the beads I use. You know, I'll say, oh, this one is from here, or like say have original Cheyenne pink beads, which they don't make anymore, because in order to make Cheyenne pink beads, you need to mix it with gold as you're creating the beads. So the manufacturers out in Czechoslovakia actually had released an apology letter to indigenous people that they're no longer able to make them because it was costing them more to make them than it was for them to not make them. So they actually had to quit making them. So when people have, do I have any here? Packed away. So when people have Cheyenne pink beads, it's actually extremely rare at this point because every other pink shade of bead will fade eventually, except for Cheyenne pink beads because of the way that they're made. So just specific beads even is kind of like a form of wealth, you know, for indigenous people. So I think about that a lot too.
Well, it's similar to wampum, right? Like, so in wampum shells, and that process that was originally used and used in as a form of currency by many folks, right? Like, and the labor that went into them to get them to that right space, and yeah, it is. It's fantastic, and it's how we can also be helping young people and adults learn more about those stories from the past, right? Like that is such an important story to know about those pink beads, and to be able to learn about them ourselves and be able to share about them not when I'm making them, but at least when I'm wearing them or you're creating them, right? And being able to share that knowledge and the stories that come with it, because it's how by sharing these things, this is why we've been here for thousands and thousands of years, right? Is that it's the sharing of the teachings and the understanding of the sacredness of pieces, right? Of the sacredness of those beads or those shells, or insert whatever it is. And whether they were crafted 500 years ago or crafted 5 minutes ago, that they have this value and this spirit. Like, so every piece that comes into my possession, it goes into ceremony, right? Like, because and when I'm in ceremony, it comes off, and even smudging, like I'll take it off and I'll smudge this, right? So that it's a reminder that this is a living being, right? This is as much a relation as anyone else in my kin family, right? So yeah, and that's what you're doing, and I think that is, you're creating that opportunity for people to have that medicine and to have that healing and look good while doing it. And your work, and Lana, much thanks to Lana, who's put your Instagram link in the chat, is that, and when I look at that, it is absolutely stunning. And that regalia that you're wearing, and you've made that regalia, correct?
Yeah, I made everything except my shawls. And one of the main ribbon skirts that I wear, my friend Miguan Buzzwell made it. So not quite everything, but all the beadwork.
Well, it's absolutely brilliant. I scrolled through your page and was just like, I wanted just to pull my credit card out. and yeah, like, it's stunning. And so one of the things that we came across, of course, and and we knew this, is that you were, my understanding, the first person to powwow dance at a Raptors game.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell
us? That's a huge deal. That's crazy. That's such a crazy sentence. Powwow dancing at a Toronto Raptors game.
And you were part of, if I'm not mistaken, part of the creators program. Is that right?
October's very own.
With that, I find you know, when you have like lofty dreams in life that you think will never happen. So that was kind of one of them. So everything that's happened since then is just kind of like a victory lap, because I'm like, I don't know what else I could do. I've already like surpassed what I thought I was ever capable of, right? And I remember applying for it. I already had an idea in my head. I'm really great at articulating concepts in my head, like that are like up there, you know, just kind of like taking something from like the collective subconsciousness and making it into words that make sense. And so my concept was really just about dance, and how, you know, a lot of Indigenous people will be basketball players and dancers. And then I included like basketball and like the heartbeat and stuff. I don't really remember exactly what I said in my application, because it was like 11 p.m. at night. The applications were due at midnight, and I was in my hotel room with all my family. Everyone's sleeping, and I'm in a corner like typing up my application real fast. So when I got the email, I was like in my house, and I remember looking at it, and like, you know, it's a big long email, and then there's 2 words, and it was like, congrats, you're accepted. 3 words, never mind. And it was in red. And I remember like it felt so cliche in the moment, like everything just kind of like ceased to exist. It was like boom, and like my eyes just trained on those 3 words, and I like stopped what I was doing. Like I started jumping around. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then it was my mom's birthday that I got the email, and I didn't want to overshadow my mom on her own birthday, you know, so I was just trying to like keep it chill, keep it cute, whatever. Like I had already told my daughter, because she heard me screaming around in the other room. So when we're all at dinner with my mom, like my daughter's like, are you going to tell them? Are you going to tell them? And I was like, okay. So I got this Raptors thing, and everyone's like, what? Oh my gosh. So it was a nice moment for my family. But there was one specific moment. I've always been like a Drake fan growing up my whole life. Nicki Minaj, all those ones. You know, when you're young and you grow up, they have like that replay value. So I was really, really big on OVO at the time. And I'd spoken with someone, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to drop names or not. So I'm just going to say like someone important. And in the phone call, everyone was on video chat, but I couldn't connect because my internet was too bad. So I was just on like voice call. And he'd said, OVO is so excited to work with you. And I didn't realize it in the moment that I had like mental blocks in my head, like roadblocks almost on what you think you're capable of, and you don't think anything outside of that. You know, like I'm not saying like, hey, you know, one day I want to do this, because it seems outside your realm of possibility. And so there's like some mental blocks that I hadn't realized. But in that moment, when I heard those words, I physically felt like a moment of like where there was mental roadblocks that I hadn't realized before, and they were just gone. And they were gone. And now I'm not at the point yet that I've felt those mental blocks since then. Like I don't know how to say this in a way that sounds kind of like conceited, but I don't feel like there's anything outside the realm of what I'm capable of doing as long as I work for it. So it really changed my life in ways like that I'm still processing to this day. Yaknami about it. Oh.
I love that so much. That's insane. And yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I remember a big part of it being you kind of manifested this opportunity before it came to you.
Right? Yeah, that's the craziest part too. Is like, you know, I used to make like joke memes and stuff where I'd like Photoshop myself in like OVO stuff, and like I had one joke meme where it's like I was literally wearing a Raptors shirt, and it was like someone else's picture, right, where he's like hugging people, and I put my face on it. And then I think like a year or 2 later, it came up on my like memories thing, and it was like around the same time, and I was like, that's so crazy, you know, like I was like quite literally like putting my face into these spaces, and then to be in those spaces later on, right? But when everything was happening at the time, like I remember some advice I'd received from someone else was to slow down and be present in the moment. And I think a lot of times I really wasn't, because so much is happening all at once, and like especially as Indigenous people, when really good things happen to you, if you, in order to get to those spaces, it's not just you. You know, it's never one person that takes himself to these spaces. Like there's so many people I could think of off the top of my head who helped me get to those spaces. You know, even my management, one the person who owns Double Curve Media, his name is Pasasm, and he is, you know, he's like an older cousin my whole life, and he was the one who got me into like performing. You know, like he would get a big gig and he would bring on like 5 other dancers. I know I feel so cool at the time. I'm like, yo, we're dancing for like this organization, you know, and we're getting money for it. This is so fun, you know. And to be young and to think back on those experiences now, I'm like in that position to be able to do that for other people, but having that knowledge behind me because someone else had brought me into those spaces, you know. So when I went into that, I was really trying to figure out like how can I include other people in that. And so I had other dancers from the Toronto area who were, you know, well-known dancers and like, you know, good dancers and good people in their own right. Like that's one thing I tried to push, you know, is like they're not just dancers, but they're good people, right? Like they do work in community, they look out for other people. So it's not just like a clout-based thing. It's like these are people I genuinely look up to and want to be included with. And so I brought on other dancers and I used songs from a group back home called Wabanaki Confederacy because I didn't want to use just, you know, any song because it's a historical moment for not just myself, but for everybody. And it feels a lot better when you could share in that joy, right? Like everyone always talks about secondhand embarrassment, but no one ever talks about like secondhand joy and secondhand excitement. You know, when someone else does something that feels so good that you could feel the excitement with you, right? And so with the game, I used Wabanaki Confederacy song because then it's a drum group from home. So not only is it like historic for us back home to have dancers, but also for the city of Toronto to have dancers that they know and recognize. And then to hear the music and for Wabanaki Confeds to be like, yo, that's us, and have all their family be like, wow, that's, you know, those are the bros songs playing on like on the intercom or whatever. And another thing, kind of off topic, but the sound in the arena was, it was cooked. It was so bad. So like there would be like an echo that was coming down and like the drum would be like doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. And like in my head, like I already, like there's sometimes I struggle with stopping on beat. That's my confession. I don't always stop on beat as a dancer. But and I was so nervous about that. Like I couldn't really get into the idea of being excited for it because I was like, oh my gosh, what if I missed the stop in front of everybody? And you know, no one else that's not Indigenous is gonna know, but everyone that is Indigenous is gonna know, and I know everyone would be tuning in and whatnot. And so all I could think is like, what if I overstep? What if I understep? But you know, when the song is happening, you just gotta close your eyes, hope for the best, stopped on time. And then after that, I was like, all right, everything is great. This is, you know, it's a good time. But the best moment of that whole day, because it was running around, you know, I think I watched maybe like 1/4 of the game. And as soon as the song was done, I didn't even get to like say bye to the other dancers. The game ops manager just like grabbed my hand and like ran me upstairs because I had to do another interview like 2 minutes later. And as we're running up the stairs, this elderly lady in her ribbon skirt, she stopped me and she grabbed my hand with both of hers, and we just looked at each other, and like she had tears in her eyes and like it made me tear up, and like, you know, we didn't say any words, we just like nodded at each other, eh? Like we're like, yo, we're here, we're out here doing this. And so that was like the best moment for me, where it's like, wow, this is, you know, it's really cool about being Indigenous because you're never just doing something for yourself. You know what I mean? Like there's always someone that could see themselves in you, which is crazy to think about, right? Because like, who am I? But yeah, it was nice.
That's a cool statement. Who am I? But everyone sees themselves in you anyway. I love that. I really appreciate you two mentioning that, because a lot of people don't talk about that. Is bringing people on, putting people on, and bringing their people with them. I think that's a huge part of who we are too. It's just because like you said, we're built by our community, right? And we're molded by it, and that's such a big part of, I think, what I really enjoy about seeing, not just people from the rest, but all new people succeed, is they're always looking back, like with an arm out, you know, like they're always trying to help somebody, back home, you know, or help someone in their family, or try to pass on an opportunity. Even, you know, even the petty ones, even the petty people, even the people who are like all about themselves and they're still trying to help their family. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just so ingrained in us. Like, I love seeing it, and it's one thing I really love about following your journey too. And could you go into that a little bit more, just around Fashion Art Toronto, in like approaching models and stuff, and how you like, how do you see this 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? Like, you know, just how do you envision that, like, community wise, and being able to just continue in that journey? Like, is it centered around Serena? Is it around communities, around, you know, like your clique, or, you know, how's that? Have you ever even thought about that?
Yeah, in a way. I'm gonna go backwards a little bit so you could understand when I go forwards. So I love fashion, you know, growing up as a teenager. You know, teen girls get into fashion at some point, I feel like. And I remember it's when I was 14, and my stepdad's Egyptian, so we went out to Egypt for a little bit, and we had a layover in Paris. And I remember getting like the magazines there and like seeing all the high name stores and whatnot. And I was a Louis Vuitton girl. I thought Louis Vuitton was so cool when I was 14. And so when we moved to Egypt, there was tons of knockoffs, but I didn't realize that knockoffs were a thing. So I would just be like, "Oh my god, a Louis Vuitton!" And like my stepdad bought me one, and I was like, "Wow!" And then I found out it was fake. And then I got another one that I was like, "Okay, I'm pretty sure this one is real because you know this clasp means this or like this," and like that one was fake too. I still have yet to own a real Louis Vuitton, but I think I'm kind of past that phase now. But just understanding that the look of something doesn't necessarily mean that it's quality. You have to look at the the quality of it itself, right? It's not just a name that makes something quality. So, you know, like if I was to make art and attach it to my name, I can't just be like, "Oh, this is Kyana Kingbird," and it's something that I don't feel I put my best work into. So I think that I try to bring that idea to my creative process as well. And that's something that's also kind of like an indigenous quality, right? Is when you think of beadwork and you think of what makes beadwork really, really quality, like, you know, what's going to increase its value, not just like financial value, but like the value that you look at when you hold it, you know, and like, and so with that is craftsmanship. Think of when you go to a museum and you see beadwork that's, you know, from decades ago or like from the 1900s, and you're like, wow, that's incredible craftsmanship, because at that point when someone made it, they had created it so well that it lasted through, you know, years and years and years and years, to the point that it's still tangible. You know, it's still here and it's still something that we could touch and hold, and it was created with like quality materials. And even you know, trading back in the day, you know, we can't say that, how would you put this? So we've always partaken in trades, right? You know, when you think of wampum, like you just said earlier, the shells, that's quality. And, you know, we would trade that for other things. And same with in the West Coast, when they would have dentalium, they would trade that. And to have those pieces, if your children and your family had those pieces, it shows that they were very loved, and that you used, you know, whatever value you had, you adorned your children and your family with that. So I try to think of that with my collections as well. So I don't really like I don't have things for sale on like a large scale, so you can't really buy anything of mine like easily. So I, for the longest time, I've just been kind of you know, we only have finite time in this world. So I have a very long list of clients, and like my wait list is kind of big right now. And I realize that that's how I prefer to work, you know, is to, if I'm going to have something that someone else is wearing, like with my name attached to it, I want it to be something of quality and something that when you hold it, it feels heavy, you know, it has that weight to it. And so I lost my train of thought. Okay, fashion. So with my fashion line is kind of a lot of the same thing. Right now, my most recent line was spring summer, and it's more about the jewelry pieces. So I had some light chiffon scarves that are like handmade as well, and you could use them in different ways, because I wear a lot of scarves personally, like if I feel shy. It's like something you could wrap around yourself and you could wear them in different ways. Maybe also as a fancy answer that ties into that somehow, to like the comfort of having something wrapped around me, maybe. But it's all mostly one of a kind jewelry pieces, and it's all with pieces and beads and material that I've been collecting for quite literally years. I've had a lot of my materials that I would collect, and like my family calls me a crow because I just will collect beads and collect different materials and hoard them and never use them. So, like Venetian beads or old trade beads or anything that's glass and that's heavy and that it's has lasted years or else could last years. Those are materials that I really take a lot of I have an affinity towards them. So my collection was all just one of a kind pieces. And I have like a specific list of people who I know or else, have good names, or like who other people would say, hey, what about this person? And so I'll like develop a list of like clientele who I have that I kind of like either loan out pieces to or sell pieces to or else commission pieces to. But with the commission, it's kind of like with the understanding that it might be a little bit of time to get them. But then that's just kind of trying to go back to old ways of creation, right? We have only finite material in this world. So in order to respect, like, not just, like us as people, but Mother Nature, you can only create so much. And after a while, if you really want to value the pieces that you have, it's going to be the ones that last forever and that last really long. So that's my kind of my ethos. I'm not sure how to wrap that up nicely.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. And you're right, that craftsmanship is so significant, right? And it's interesting. So we've talked about this on the show before, is that there's a growing movement and spaces and places where Indigenous creators are able to share their gifts with folks, right? And I've been watching the last couple of years, and I've been sort of mindful of the fact that there is this, and not in a bad way, but this sort of series of tiers that people are at. Because there's the kitchen crafters, right? And so they're crafting in their kitchen, and they're learning, they're building their skill, they're building their understanding of what it is they're doing from a spiritual connection and from a historical sort of piece, and the teachings that might go with product A or B, and they're kitchen crafters, and their work is delightful, and it's creative, and it's fun, and it's generally more affordable, because they're folks who, they aren't doing this as a livelihood. They're not doing this as they're doing it because it's an activity that they enjoy, that connects them to something bigger than themselves. And then there's sort of that group that are, I would use the term artisan. Like, so they are, and what I see in places and spaces that I travel to, and I see these folks, their skill set is greater than that of the crafters. And it's not to say their work is better or worse. It's just their skill set, right? Their craftsmanship is a little more owned, and their pieces are a bit more expensive and often one-off, so one piece, right? But it also takes them a long time to make them, because they're artisans and they're really focused on the because they do carry that knowledge of why and what these pieces are for in the bigger picture for the world. And then there's artists. There's folks who are artists, and not to say the other two aren't artists, because it's a form of art, it's certainly. But these folks who I see, they're artists, and this is what they're doing. This is their profession. They're not beading on the side of their desk, right? They're beading at the center of their desk, or they're painting, or they're writing, or they're drawing, or they're whatever their medium is, right? And they are telling stories that are a little bit deeper with their pieces than the crafters might be doing, or even the artisan pieces might be doing. Does that sound like, and I'm asking you as an artist, and that's sort of how I would sort of envision what you're doing. And would that be an accurate assessment, you think, of the territory of this sort of growing commerce and growing space for Indigenous visibility in art and culture?
Sure. And I think too, also to add to that is when people have been creating enough that you know it's their work before someone mentions them by name is when
Yeah.
enough of like an artistic identity that you could see that it's theirs. One time, one thing that really always stuck with me, and I was like, I want to be like that, is I was wearing a ribbon skirt, and it was by the Gustafsons. So they make incredible woodland work, but they also don't really take orders like that because the exact same thing. You know, they have a time limit, and they work a lot on their own thing. So you wouldn't really have a date to expect it by. And I was wearing one of their ribbon skirts I'd got as a gift, and I was at a powwow and I was just walking, and someone walked past me and they pointed to my skirt and they said, "Love your Gustafson." And I said, okay, you know, like, wow, this is indigenous fashion, you know, like indigenous haute couture. Like, we're not just people just, you know, creating things willy-nilly, but it's full on craftsmanship. And so that always stuck with me. That was years and years ago. I think it was in 2018 that happened. But in my mind, that was always like, you know, someday.
Awesome.
I love that you mentioned that because just what Mother's Day was recently, right? So I was getting baskets and stuff for gifts, and I always think about that is because that was one thing that I grew up around was my Giju loves baskets. You know, my godmother loves baskets. My family, my mom, they love baskets and collecting baskets, and that was always a big thing was identifying. Oh, you know, going to Sella days and be like, oh, that looks like so and so's work, you know, and then trying to bet, and you know, it gets to like a couple grand, and then you get it, and it's like just this little tiny basket, you know, with like a name on it. It's just like that, like excellence and like people like recognizing it. And yeah, like just that, I love that so much. And that always made me like so proud to see basket work, just like in public and stuff. But the little off topic, I got this when I was buying gifts, and this is for myself. This little basket for myself. The first time I bought a basket for myself, you can't really see it because it's like sad.
Oh no, it's absolutely, yeah, it looks gorgeous.
But it's got these like little jiggagees on the top and on the sides, and but yeah, if anyone knows who made this basket,
Let me know.
Yeah, if you guys recognize the work, there's no name on it, but I think it came from like Listagush or something because the first time too I ever seen people like making baskets like this too. So like even that, like the difference between craftsmanship across regions and like the different qualities and stuff is just like we really like indigenous fashion and our you know artisans and all that. Like it really is like we are the original like Louis Vuitton bougie like all that stuff. And yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and it just reminded me of that. Yeah.
I would have a piece of beautiful, stunning beadwork over a Louis Vuitton bag any day.
All day.
All day. Or I would get a Louis Vuitton bag and then have it beaded.
That would be cool.
That would be deadly.
My mom has beaded and done things like enhanced things for me, and as well like this hat even, right? Someone did this piece for me here, and I like to enhance stuff that's out there, right? Like it is, and I've got a vision of I've got a really handsome white Hugo Boss suit, and depending on my pregnancy shape at that time of the year, it like can fit perfectly. And I've got this vision of the whatever you call it, the side here, like the lapel maybe, and having it beaded all the way down, and just like a single line, and just the four directions, the color of the four directions repeating, right? And I've got this vision of that, and it is on my to-do list. And I just found a hat today that I had a Columbia hat, like one of those like what do you call those hats? They're the funny hats, like you wear in the rain or whatever. No, wear them in the rain. They're floppy.
Nor'easter. That's what they call them here.
Well, not a nor'easter totally, but similar to that, maybe like a bucket hat. There you go.
Okay, bucket
hat. And so an artist I know, well, an artisan I'll say, versus the artist, because they do it sort of. It's not what they do, but they're very, very gifted. They beaded it for me, and and I put it on, and it was not, their work is fantastic, but the Columbia part of the hat didn't really work with it because it's kind of floppy and it's like, but I packed it where you'll see it on the trip to Atlantic Canada.
Nice.
We're just so you know, Kyana, we're coming to Eel Ground on the 9th of June. We'll be there. And I don't know how old your daughter is, but we're having an event that's open to young people from across New Brunswick. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're about 40 minutes away. And so certainly if she's sort of 13 or older, certainly bring her without a doubt. And or just come and stop by and say hi to us and to the young people. Do you mind if I share a video from, this is from Emerge Halifax. I assume you know the video I'm talking about, as it's about you?
Oh, is it one of me? Yes. Oh my gosh, I've never actually watched it before.
Well, would you mind if we shared that video here?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see here. So this is from Emerge Halifax, and so here we go. Try that again. Oh, this might be the audio.
Was that difficult at all? You made it look easy. It looked effortless.
I remember I was on so little sleep at the time, and it's when I was like I didn't have a good work-life balance. And so if I had blank spots in my calendar, I'd be like, oh, well, obviously I could work on those days. So I would fill up my calendar like every single day. I'd be traveling or like doing something every day, like on top of whatever my normal job was. And at that time period, I just remember I was so overworked, and just watching that, I could like see the tiredness in my face. And I remember too, my body just being exhausted. So every time between sets, I'd be like, and I'm like bent over, and they're like, good. I'm like, yeah, just a second. All right, let's go. And then, you know, especially where it's like filmed, so I would have to keep dancing over and over and over again. And in my head, I was thinking it was just going to be like 2 or 3 songs, and it was, I think, like 6 or 9. And so just watching it, it's kind of funny to look back on, because now I'm like 6 or 9 songs would be fine. But just where I was overworking myself at the time, you know, and that's another thing too that's hard as Indigenous people, is when you feel like you're gonna make it, you know, in contemporary society, you overdo it a little bit because that's the culture. And now I'm at the point where I'm kind of doing a lot less, but I'm also well rested, and I'm capable of doing everything that I do without having, you know, like those breakdowns or like feeling overworked or feeling like I'm starving and I'm exhausted. You know, when I watch that video, I feel like a slight little bit sadness, because I know how I was feeling behind the scenes, right? And I have another video of myself doing dancing to that exact same song because I really like that song. And just the quality in it is so different. You know, like I was kicking a lot higher in my recent one. Like it's a lot more effortless movement. And so just the difference in and having a good work-life balance really hit me watching that video.
That's cool how you mentioned that balance after speaking about your beadwork and wanting to put everything into it and make it perfect and do the best, like the creation that you can. But then in turn, like after all this stuff, and here you are reflecting on how like a little less is even better for you in like that same lesson, just like in your life and everything. And yeah, I think that's really cool.
It is an important message though, because particularly for artists and creators and entrepreneurs, the reality is that we do want to be able to give back. We do want to bring others with us. We don't want to walk this path all on our own. We want to be able to be surrounded by, and I've said for years, like I'm not too shabby, but I've surrounded myself with awesome, right? And so that awesome rubs off a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. And we want to be able to pay that forward, right? And we want to be able to lift up our families and our communities, our nations. And there is a level of pressure at times, I think. One of the greatest sort of pieces of our work is that we get to support Indigenous creators, businesses, entrepreneurs every year, and we in different ways. And we're working on a project right now where we're going to have the opportunity to engage with local and regional artists to create these pieces around the health system. And these pieces are going to be profiled in health spaces. And the process of making them will be the discussions that occur between those health spaces and the artists to have conversations so these pieces are meaningful and reflective of both the experiences and the hopes that we have for how we fit into the health space, right? Either as patients or as employees or volunteers, whatever that looks like. And so that opportunity to be able to put a substantial amount of money into Indigenous arts locally, that's a highlight of this year without a doubt. But there's that pressure that does come with it, right? That we have to keep working harder and harder. And I am not an expert at life-work balance in any way. In any way can I ever acknowledge that, be it like I would be a liar. But what I can tell you, and in fact, and I feel it right now, right at 8:30 my time, I'm tuckered. It's been a long day.
We literally talked about that at the start of the show. It's funny.
Yeah, and but that said, as I watch these folks saying hello, right, I see Mello is here, and Lana's here, and Christine said hello, and Mance said hello, and Corey said hello, and people who are coming out every week to hang out with us, right, in this space. And by the end of the week, and there's anywhere between generally 500 and 1,500 people view this video, right? So it's not a very big network or a big audience, but it's a strong network and it's a strong community. Because I think at the very core of it, what you're doing is creating spaces for community, right? It's and tools for young people, particularly and adults, to be proud of who we are and where we're from, proud of the journey that our ancestors, our grandparents, our grandparents, our parents took to be able to get to this space and place that we're at. And there is then that responsibility that comes with that, I think. But at the end of the day, all we can do is our very, very best, right? And I'm not wearing this shirt intentionally, but the reality is that we're enough no matter what it is in whatever the space is that day. And we have to be reminded of that, right? It is, we're enough as is. I feel like sometimes I'm like, I don't have to be a certified safety car. I can be good as is. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, we always want to hit certain things, targets, goals, achievements. But if I can share one thing, Kyana, you talked about when you were reflecting on your experience with the Creators Program in Toronto, and that you've hit this space, you've hit this sort of, like, how do you top that? I can tell you, without knowing you in beyond today, that experience with OVO and with the Raptors, as powerful and significant as it was, pales into comparison to how you're walking in this world and what you're leaving in this world. That was a big deal, but you inherently are, and it pours out of you. And I think our friends watching will agree, is that you're a way bigger deal than a performance or a tuckered one when you were tuckered, or you are creating shifts and changes for you and your daughter, which also means for your family as a whole, your community, your nation. And I just want to just point that out. I don't know you that well. I certainly admire you. I'm so grateful you came and hung out with us tonight. And but at the end of it, I just want to point out that Toronto experience, you have surpassed it well and beyond. And I'm really happy to know that you connect with young people in different spaces and places and share your messaging and your words with them, because tonight has been just an absolute highlight, without a doubt. Like, this has been a wonderful way to spend a Sunday.
It really was. And I want to, before you reply, just I also wanted to thank you so much. We've been trying to get we've been trying to make our schedules work for a bit, and I'm really, really grateful. And I've been really excited to pick your brain for a long time around a lot of this stuff. So I'm really grateful for everything you've brought, and all the medicine you brought tonight, and all the medicine you continue to bring in the world.
Thank you, guys. Those are really kind words. When you hear something, and like I always say that there's like weight, and sometimes when you hear things and it's like you feel that weight, and usually when people talk about it, it's like a heavy one. But I think that's the kind of words that, it's heavy, but in a way that lifts you up. So thank you guys for that. I talk about that with Jingle sometimes. I heard Acacia Red Oak say it first, so I'm not taking credit for these words. But when you dance Jingle, there's a heavy weight to that too. And when you hear a real good song, or when you're praying real hard, or when you really connect to the song or to your prayers, is that it's a heaviness, but it's not one that brings you down. It's one that lifts you up. Like, especially when you're dancing sidestep, because like it's literally just up, down, up, down, up, down. And when I first started dancing it, that's what I would say in my head the entire time to stay on beat. It's just up, down, up, down, up, down. Not quite praying, but praying I stay on beat. And then once you get that in your head, after a while, you're not saying that anymore. But that feeling of heaviness, that's uplifting, and like just that inner feeling, and just being able to replicate that through words. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys for also taking the time to talk to me and listen to me ramble.
No rambling at all. And so, again, I invite you to come out to Eel Ground on the 9th, I believe, 9th of June.
Yes, sir.
If you're around, feel free to stop by and say hello. And again, if your little one is not so little, I don't know how old she is, but she's very welcome to join us. The work you do, and we share this message, the three things are really simple: that you matter, you're important, and you belong. And lots of us haven't always felt that, or don't always feel that all the time. And while it's natural, it's also essential that we lift each other up and remind each other just how much we matter in this world. And so thank you. And Brennan, I'm so appreciative that you introduced us to Kyana, and I'm very jealous that Mello has some of her work, and I will look forward to seeing the piece that speaks to me at some point on one of your pages. I just want to point out that Lana says, another amazing show. You're beautiful, phenomenal change makers. The work the three of you is important. I raise up my hands to you all. Thank you, and sending everyone love and hugs without a doubt. Right back at you, Lana, and everyone else who's joined us. At the end of the day, we just have this opportunity where we get to choose how we're going to walk in this world. Are we going to be kind? Are we going to be thoughtful? Are we going to be reflective? Or are we not? And are we going to be jerk faces and bossy? And are we going to cut someone off on the road or cut in line at the grocery store? We get to choose how we're going to walk in this world. And those seem like tiny little things, but the reality is that when we do those little tiny things, we're more likely to do some of those bigger things. And the same is true for kindness. We can practice little acts of kindness here and there. And if we are more likely to practice little acts of kindness, then the reality is those bigger pieces will come out of us as well. And that's how we move forward, I think, Kyana, is lifting each other up, right? And this week is going to be a hard week for lots of people. And our relations across the country who have identified and or recovered and or brought home the spirits of the little ones. The reality is that 3 years ago, I think for so many of us, our world shifted completely. We knew what this was out there. We knew the history. We knew the stories. We'd heard them. But in the recovery of the children from Kamloops, it opened a series of hurts that, and I think back to that period of time, this series of hurts that some of us had never knew were possible. And we certainly saw it in young people who just hadn't necessarily understood deeply about residential schools and the harm they caused. And that exposure to that knowledge that this had occurred in this country called Canada was so much for them. And so a reminder again tonight that as the week goes on, and if people share and talk about it, it's about being able to check in with folks and talk about those feelings that you're having inside. We, for some reason, we think in this world we have to do that all by ourselves. That we all like talking about it is no good, or I'm weak, or I'm this, or I'm that. But the reality is that we just don't have to process the challenges in life alone. And the beauty of that is the counter to it is that we also don't need to enjoy our riches and successes on our own. And I don't mean riches in the matter of monies and dollars and cents or even 1,000 wampum beaded shells. I mean those riches in the sense of the fact that we get to be with each other. And Lana talks about the fact that kindness is absolutely free. And Corey shares that there's just this they're so powerful, and the superpower, you would call it. So this week, maybe one of the things we can try to do is to practice random acts of kindness. And here's a fun fact. If you do, don't tell anyone about it. Just do it. Just do it and hold it here. The other person will know and you'll know. And I can trust me when I tell you, it'll be worth so much more weight for your spirit. And yeah. So this is my rambling rant for 8:39 p.m. This was kind of, you should know, we don't normally go this long at all. So this is exciting. We go this long when the conversations are just so intense and powerful. And so thank you again. I have one last question for you. Is the heart a tattoo on your neck?
You know what? That's the number one question I get asked after I got it tattooed. Yes.
I would imagine it's a fair yes. I imagine it is a question that you would get asked more than once. It is absolutely spectacular, and I hope our friend Kimmy D, she loves the hearts.
I have a story. So when I was in university, one thing I realized quickly, and what scared me is when you speak out in spaces, especially where there's elders and knowledge keepers, if you say, I don't think done right, then they'll say, all right, well, you do it. And so, when you get put in those positions, I remember once it was for a Wet'suwet'en rally, And I was like, I think we should really we should do a rally or something. And I think it was Ron Tremblay said, all right, we'll start organizing it. So trying to figure that out. That was one of the first times
5 years ago.
Yeah, being put in a space where I didn't feel confident and I wasn't sure what to say, and being told speak from the heart. And I had no idea what that meant, like how to speak from the heart. And after a while I would continue to hear that, especially when you get put into spaces where you have to public speak. Believe it or not, I used to stutter, I used to shake, I used to not be able to speak in front of people ever at all. Like I would be nervous to do a class presentation in front of people at university, and it would be like 12 people in my class. So I'd keep being told, speak from the heart. And it wasn't just in one social circumstance. It was like in various social circles, various spaces, different cities and places. They would just say, speak from the heart. And I heard that for about 2 years. And after a while, I stopped hearing it. And so when I stopped hearing it, I'm like, oh, I think I got it. I think I learned how to speak from the heart. So I think it was like 2 or 3 days before I did the filming for the assets for my Raptors profile. It was like 9 p.m. at night. I was in Toronto. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I just called up this tattoo place to see if they were still open. They're like, yeah, come on in. And so I got this tattoo done right then and there. And the Raptors people were kind of looking at me and I looked at them and they were like, okay, anyway. So, and ever since then I've been trying to pass that message on to other people. So it's a nice way of kind of taking a message that was given to me and being able to give it back to other people as often as I can. Right.
Awesome.
Love that.
Awesome. And with that, we will say, Mama P, good night. If I recall, next week we're not going to be on. We're not going to be hanging out next Sunday, as it's
the one after that, right?
I mean,
the next two.
After that, we'll be live from New Brunswick.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we'll be live from New Brunswick, either from Eel Ground, it's just sticking around Eel Ground, or in Shediac, or somewhere in between. And so we'll be back in 2 weeks. And until then, friends, make sure I didn't do it. Look, see how bad I am. So you should know, kind of, I'd be a horrible influencers or anything of that nature. I don't know what our title would be, but because we're supposed to always this on here, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you are updated when we go live, blah, 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 blah. But I do have a plan. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit and like and click and share so others can come walk with us. We were provided great advice that we should be doing this, right? And we just forget. That said, our friend Brandon had suggested that we could get, was it 1,000 or 100?
I mean, we got 100. God bless.
Oh, yeah. So getting to 1,000.
Getting to 1,000
subscribers on YouTube.
In a year. Yeah.
So I do have a thought in my head, and it's gross and horrifying. Are you ready for it?
Calendar?
No.
You're gonna? No. Okay. Never mind.
But that's another one. Okay. So here's my thinking. I'm going on holiday in July. Thankfully, as a First Nations fella, I'm not super hairy. But as I have entered my grandfather years, I have noted that there is like this little tail of fur, like light dusting, like a goose, like a baby goose on my lower back and a little bit on my upper back. And no one has ever commented on it, but I have noticed it. So my daughter-in-law, Shawnee, who's in nursing, but is also an esthetician, has agreed to wax my back.
No way.
On the show.
Bruh.
Live on the show, but we would need to do two things. We would need to, I can't remember, and if Jeff is still watching, I don't remember what we were talking about today. So I think we would need to have 25 new subscribers from today.
That's it?
And we would need to have confirmed raised $250 for food banks. And we, as you know, we support the food bank in Millbrook. We support the food bank here in Kingston. But we've also supported them all across the country, as well as Food Banks Canada. So if people can demonstrate that they have contributed to a local or other food bank, and we can get 25 new subscribers, someone send me a message, so I won't remember this tomorrow, I'm sure. But 25 new subscribers on YouTube and $250, I will wax my, well, I won't, but Shawnee will wax my back live on the show. So it's got to happen.
I'm at 162 now, so.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so there we go. So 25 subscribers. That's it. And I'll get my back waxed on the show. And JJ really suggested against it and said you're going to look bad and you're going to cry. And there are good odds of that I will do those things. And I will work hard not to cuss or curse because I feel like it's going to suck. I've seen the 40-year-old virgin. Like I have that memory in my head.
Clarkson. Yeah, I remember my grandfather got a birthday card one year. It was like a birthday card of that moment from the movie. You like open it, it's like, oh, Kelly Clarkson. It was hilarious. I thought it was so funny.
So it's got to happen before July 4th, though. That's the thing because I leave on July 4th.
Oh, that's okay.
So
I'm gonna force all the kids on the tour to subscribe because I know they all got YouTube. So.
You're supposed to be helpful, not like vengeful. Random acts.
It's great content.
Yeah. And you're so brave, says Pat. Well, let's see. I am not brave yet. Show us the money, show us the subscriptions, and maybe we'll get there. So to lighten the mood, there you are. And my friends, you all have a fantastic couple of weeks. And when we come back live next at the Three Things office in the House of Dysfunction, you will see a very different background because we'll be in our new digs. And so we're very excited to move to our new office space. And who knows what the background is going to look like. I have absolutely no idea at this point. And but the next time we go live from here, you will see the new background. And Kyana, it was fantastic. Lovely to spend time with you and visit. Brennan, love you to the moon and back. 9 days or so until, or no, 10 days or something.
9.
Whatever. I don't know. I'm bad at math. It's got to be more than 9 because it's the 26th of May. And we're going to see you on the 7th of June. So that's 10 days. 10 sleeps till we see each other again. And so until then, my friends, we will say Bamapi and see you all sooner than later.
Thanks so much, everyone. Lal and Multis.
Yeah.